Legend Jack Nicholson has previously maintained that he's a dad to 5 adult kids. Their names are Caleb, Honey, Sandra, Ray, and Lorraine, with the last 2 sharing the same mom. But there's another child Nicholson has stayed quiet about, Tessa Gorin. And now Tessa, who bears an undeniable resemblance to the famed actor, is finally speaking out. Meeting Gorin. Born in 1994, Gorin is the youngest of Nicholson's kids and currently resides in East Village, New York. She called Manhattan home throughout her childhood, living in a small apartment alongside her mom and half-brother. As for her dad, he was nowhere to be seen, although he did help pay for her schooling. So what was life like for Gorin growing up? Home life wasn't great. Well, Gorin went into more detail during an interview with the Daily Beast website in February 2023. She said, "Look, I was raised by a single mother in a really intense, nuanced situation. I grew up in private schools, which I'm appreciative of, but my home life wasn't great, so I don't feel as though I really even got the full benefit of a good education. All over the place. I was so all over the place with processing my life," Gorin continued. "I was acting out. But granted, I'm not saying, poor me, I grew up so poor I was completely fine. My mother indulged me." While Gorin's mom did her best to pamper her, though, she made one thing clear to her daughter, and it related to Nicholson: keeping a secret. Touching on that, Gorin drew a comparison to one of her favorite musicals. She noted, "From a very young age, my mother told me not to tell anyone that I have this famous dad. I knew he was powerful and Daddy Warbucks level rich, so I kind of equated my life to being like Orphan Annie's." Breaking the silence. So what's changed? Why does Gorin want to go public with her story now? Well, it all ties back to her aspirations. You see, she's always wanted to be an actress, showing off that passion from an early age. But as she's got older, Gorin has watched other children of famous celebrities pass her by and get chances in the industry, while denying their connections. The Nepo baby debate. These folks have since been dubbed Nepo babies, and Gorin has some interesting views on the topic, to say the least. In the end, she couldn't contain them any longer. So the aspiring actress penned an article for Newsweek magazine in February 2023 titled, "I'm Jack Nicholson's daughter I wish people could call Maine and Nepo baby." She looked at it from a couple of different angles. Frustration. Gorin wrote, "Having grown up without my father, I've sat on the sidelines and watched in frustration as other celebrity children have seamlessly secured roles or been signed to huge agencies. More recently, I've grown even more frustrated at what I think is a missed opportunity for these so-called Nepo babies to own their position and embrace it instead of complaining about it." Unique perspective. Given her upbringing, it shouldn't be too surprising that Gorin has a unique perspective on this. She also went into further detail as her chat with the Daily Beast continued. Nicholson's daughter said, "It's such a double-sided thing because I can understand the frustration of getting in the door, and then once you're there, it's like, okay, now show us what you can do." Driving force. "But, as an actor, that's the most exciting thing to me," Gorin admitted. "It's a driving force to want to prove yourself. This guilty thing over ultimately having a gift is something you should just work out yourself and put into your work." Yet while her Nepo baby views are certainly thought-provoking, the Newsweek article is notable for something else too. A connection? Yep, Gorin outlined her connection with Nicholson, or rather, the lack of one. She bluntly stated, "The truth is, in all of my 28 years of life, we have never had a relationship. Now, that's not to say that she hasn't tried." Gorin's mom was pretty active in that regard, encouraging her to visit the Hollywood icon from time to time. Real-life personality. Thanks to his iconic roles, which have veered from the manic to downright unhinged, it's tough not to view Nicholson's real-life personality through that lens. Is he really like that, though? Well, when Gorin did see her dad as a kid, she didn't get that impression. Having said that, his attitude prevented her from getting too much of a read on him. She could sense one thing, though. She wasn't feeling it. Gorin wrote, "Although I flew from New York City to Los Angeles to meet on the odd occasion as a young girl, It was always clear that my dad wanted no part in my life. Have you ever been on a date and sensed that the other person just wasn't feeling it? That's pretty much how every interaction I've ever had with Jack Nicholson has gone. A painful contrast. To make matters even more painful for Goran, Nicholson doesn't appear to act that way around his other kids, especially Ray and Lorraine. As the actor in 2010 told RP Magazine, "We've always gotten along. I want to be inspirational or some kind of good influence on them without overburdening them. It's their time of life to find out who they are. A father's responsibility. I always read to them from childhood on," Nicholson added. "I think that's a father's responsibility. I took them to things I knew they might not love: opera, ballet. They like going to the ball games with me, and they're very comfortable around show business." And this complex situation has led to other issues as well. Lurking doubts. As we mentioned earlier, Goran has a passion for acting. After leaving high school, though, doubts began to creep into her mind. She was nervous that her link to Nicholson would make folks question whether she really deserved a shot in the business. The thought of being a nepo baby back then clearly didn't sit well. So Goran decided to walk away for a spell in her mid-20s. I was afraid. I was afraid people would think I was tacky or that I was riding off my dad's coattails, Goran told the Daily Beast. But this person doesn't want me in his life, so how would you use that to your benefit? Still, following some meetings with her therapist, which are still ongoing, she's hoping to get back in the game. Roles I'd love to play. Goran said, "In terms of the types of roles I'd love to play, Jessica Lange in Frances, Ellen Burstyn in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Parker Posey in Party Girl, Martha Plimpton in 200 Cigarettes, and Gina Rowlands in literally anything she's ever done. I want to work with Darren Aronofsky. I'd love to work with Mike White. I would tear the White Lotus." Inevitable comparisons. It'll be interesting to see how Goran's career develops. Could she enjoy a similar trajectory to Nicholson? There'll always be comparisons, even though his last on-screen performance came in 2010's How Do You Know? And that brings us nicely to the next issue that Goran has faced throughout her life. Her dad's shadow has been a constant, regardless of their non-existent relationship. Center of attention? As we found out earlier, Goran's mom discouraged her from revealing who her dad was. Yet as she grew up, it seemed to become an open secret to all those around her that she was related to Nicholson. For one thing, their eyebrows and smiles are practically identical. As a result of that, though, he often became the center of the conversation. Always find out. Goran informed the Daily Beast, "Camp counselors used to make me say, 'Here's Johnny,' and obviously at 8 years old I'd never even seen The Shining. People always find out about my parentage everywhere I go, and I'm actually not sure how, because it's not what I lead with, ever. But if people ask me, I'll always just get into it because I'm such an open book. No escape. If you've ever wondered what it must be like to be the child of a Hollywood legend, this is a solid example. There's seemingly no escape from the attention that comes with it. And that can be extremely problematic in certain settings, especially coupled with the openness that Goran continues to showcase. She offered up one pretty cringy example to the website, an ill-advised monologue. Goran recalled, "A few years ago I was casually dating this guy who was also an actor, and I opened up to him about the whole situation, specifically about how difficult it was for me growing up. His response was to start doing a monologue from The Departed, and the accent and everything. The biggest issue. Yet for everything she's been through, Goran outlined the toughest aspect of this entire situation in her Newsweek article, and it's easy to understand why it bothers her so much. The aspiring actress wrote, "The most frustrating part of my life is being described as Jack Nicholson's alleged daughter or illegitimate child. I feel like I'm living in the 1500s when that term is used to describe me. It's exhausting. Whatever the dictionary definition, I'm very much legitimate," Goran continued. "I'm not something to be ashamed of. While Jack has never publicly acknowledged that he's my biological father, I exist in a very major way. If you know me personally, you know that I'm not exactly someone who fades into the background. Trust me, I've tried. I've grown up feeling like I have to apologize for existing, and it's exhausting. No bitterness. But despite the issues, Gorin doesn't harbor any ill will towards Nicholson now. As she wrote in her Newsweek piece, there's no bitterness on her end. She's accepted that he doesn't want to see her, even though he's unofficially retired and has a lot of free time today. A major question. There's also nothing to suggest that Gorin is in contact with Nicholson's other 5 kids. She's very much living her own life. Yet we're still left with a major question here. Why did the 3-time Oscar winner decide to keep his distance from his youngest child all those years ago? The Daily Beast raised this point with Gorin, and she quickly responded. Collateral damage. I don't think anyone's ever given